Yes, it will. Now we need to get rid of all the note takers.
Yeah. Is the recording being stored on your computer or in the cloud?
On my computer.
Perfect. So yeah, feel free to just kick out the note takers. I think you can click on them and just click like remove, boot them out.
Boot them out. How do we boot them out? You guys are the tech guys, so how do we boot them out? Remove. Here we go. Remove Mentra. Remove. Remove Karen. Don't report. No, just want to remove this. I am so glad you guys are here. Okay, we are here live. Okay, so do you guys? Did you guys? You can just explain who you are instead of me reading a bio, right? That's probably going to be really good because there's two of you. Okay, and it's Jhillika. How do you pronounce your first name?
Jhillika.
Jhillika, because it's been like Angelica.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful name. Okay. Okay, so here we are at the World Autism Summit, and we are here with Jhillika and Connor, and really, really happy to have you here. And of course, we're moving the needle of understanding and success around the world for people with autism and neurodiversity. And we are so happy to have you here helping us do that. And I'd love for you to tell us, what you're all about with Mentra, and I just share your story and share, what you're all about.
Sure. Thanks for having us here. My name's Jhillika, co-founder and CEO at Mentra, and we have Connor. I will not spoil his intro. But yeah, we are the co-founders at Mentra, really building the next LinkedIn for neurodivergence with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, different forms of cognitive diversity. We ourselves are neurodivergent and have a neurodiverse team that are all building this change that we see in the world of really empowering the 1 in every 7 humans to find meaning, purpose, and fulfillment in their careers and in the working world. And I was inspired by my brother Vikram, who's a non-speaking autistic individual who actually learned to type at the age of 27 by using a letterboard and typing his first words. And we realized that he was a brilliant poet, had so much potential, was significantly overlooked, and if brought into the workforce, like so many others, could bring so much value to society and the economic world. So I'll pass it on to Connor. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. Yes.
Thanks, Karen, for hosting. My name's Connor. I'm the co-founder and COO here at Mentra. I am autistic myself, diagnosed on the spectrum as an adult at age 24. And really, Jhillika kind of hit the nail on the head. We're building a network for neurodivergence around the world, starting in the US, to be able to fully unmask their neurodiversity in the job finding process, and to find employers that value them, not despite their neurodivergence, but because of the unique skills they bring. And really, this all got started when Jhillika was sharing the story of her brother, which was a really powerful one, at TEDx Georgia Tech about 4 years ago. So I was organizing that TED Talk conference. She was speaking, and we realized that this was a huge need. We started initially while we were still in school at Georgia Tech, working with the local Atlanta area autism community, and really understanding pretty quickly that this was not an issue of capability. This was not an issue of the talent not being there. This was everything to do with companies didn't have a way of discovering and understanding the strengths of this population. So that's what we went out to solve for. And that's what Mentra solves.
That is so amazing. And of course, I told you about Georgia Tech, and I grew up in Georgia, part of my life. My dad was at Lockheed, and I'm one of my first boyfriends was from Georgia Tech. Anyway, I digress. But good. Yeah, that's great. I love what you guys stand for, and I love the direction that you're going. And of course, autism is the cream of the crop as far as I'm concerned. That's a very, very good talent pool, and we need to help people focus on the gifts, strengths, and talents of people with autism and neurodiversity. So that's what we're all about. That's what you're all about, and we want to, help you as much as we possibly can. So, what brought you to the World Autism Summit? Aside from me, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like your focus globally is, of course, a shared vision and mission that we have too. So
Yeah, for sure. I think, we're really excited to have change makers like yourself really bringing the community together. And I think forums like this one are really important for a couple of reasons. One of the shifts that we're seeing overall in the industry over the last 10 years is that there's been a lot of efforts from companies to go and hire from this talent pool. And there's been a lot of amazing on the ground grassroots efforts. But the challenge is that these have been relatively disjoint efforts. From a company perspective, we're looking at individual roles and departments into siloed opportunities. From a organization perspective, we're looking at partnerships that individual companies are fostering to bring on talent. That really can serve the company in question to a certain point, but there's also a limit to that in terms of scalability. And what's most important is that the community, the grassroots players, they lose out by having these disjoint efforts. What we see is the importance of this type of forum and the work that we're trying to promote is that there's a benefit for us all coming together around a singular solution and really clarifying the direction that we need to go in. And it's not siloed programs, it's
right.
Company-wide neuroinclusion. That's the future. And we see that as the future that everyone, on the spectrum, everyone who's neurodivergent, who's either in the workforce or going into the workforce, deserves to live in a world where every company, every role is open to them, and their strengths can be fully leveraged in the workforce of the future.
That's beautiful, because we also are we're an unbiased platform where there's enough there for everybody. There's enough people. There's enough resources. There's enough to go around, and so we want to open it up so that everybody can share with everybody else. Other parents can meet parents. Other people that are autistic can meet other people that are autistic, and everybody can just mix and blend and share resources, because that's one thing that I found is talking to people in Africa and in the Philippines and India and all over the world is that people are really struggling out there and they need to learn from other people. So kudos to you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true, Karen. And especially, we see that neurodiversity is like very much and the idea of recognizing the powers and strengths of autistic individuals in the workforce is like relatively growing in the United States as well as Australia and the UK. There's a lot of support infrastructure there. Our goal is eventually to make this global. So we want to empower individuals in India, in Africa, in the Philippines, in so many of those underserved areas, especially where there's a lot of stigmas around neurodivergence from society and family, and there's so much to it that when we do expand to those markets, it's going to be really important for us to be intentional and empathetic towards all of those kind of nuances. But I mean, Mentra right now is primarily based in the US and Canada, but we're so glad that you have cultivated this global audience and that eventually, like, when we are ready, like, we'll have a whole community that is here and open arms to expanding this movement.
Well, I think that it's going to grow a lot faster than you think it is. I think it's going to go fast. I really do, because the internet, the power of the internet, the power of people coming together, we really have a much farther reach than it can go fast.
And we see that
from people like you.
From our perspective, that's exactly right. Like, we want to be able to take our backgrounds as technologists.
Yes.
And we've seen that the internet has so much promise. We've seen that new tools like AI have so much, ability to level the playing field, but yet it hasn't happened yet. So we have all of the capabilities in place. Our goal is to bring those resources out to the community. So very excited to announce that we're working on a virtual job coach called Neuro, which is available for free for any job seeker on the Mentra platform, or it will be very soon, to be able to access, tailored advice, tailored to their own neurodivergence for how they can unmask, how they can navigate the interview process, how they can actually prepare cover letters and emails, even professional emails to recruiters and to hiring managers and even folks who are already employed, to be able to navigate some of these challenging and often, situations that may not have a playbook traditionally associated with that. So these are very nuanced scenarios that we all in the community faces. And we want to be able to provide as many meaningful resources as possible to our population on the platform.
I love that idea, playbook. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jhillika.
So we've done a lot of research into where different companies fall on their journeys towards neuro inclusion. And so what we've built is sort of this maturity model that we see, companies succeeding you have to start somewhere. So having a pilot or a program could be a good starting point. It could also expand to departments. Company-wide neuro inclusion is like the end goal. And we've pioneered this rubric with Vanderbilt's Frisk Center to really identify where companies sit and what supports they have in place. And then on the other side, to support the job seeker with making that information available and, showing how much support infrastructure the company has before they even join the job. So making that knowledge accessible, because that is like, if you think about it, it's like 70 to 80% of your life that you're spending at work. And you want to make sure it's a place that you feel tapped into and you can bring your full self to work and you feel energized by the work that you do. So yeah, that's really the goal. And a lot of those playbooks we're building are to help both job seekers as well as employers on their journey.
And employers too, right?
Yep, exactly.
If you're a vegetarian and you're looking for lunch, you're going to go on Google Maps and you'll search vegetarian options. If you're neurodivergent and you're looking for a job, there's really no way. It's very difficult to go and find out which companies are actually going to be neuro-inclusive, in what areas, and what types of roles. We want to demystify that entire process, and that is a two-sided effort. We have this maturity curve for companies where we're understanding where they're at, and we also have an ability to make sure that job descriptions and job postings are presented in a cognitively accessible manner. Mm-hmm. We make the job finding process accessible, easy to navigate, and we actually have a matching algorithm that helps understand as a job seeker, understand your unique neurotype, your unique aptitudes, whether you have traditional experience or not, whether you have a resume or not. That's great. Identify which jobs are you really likely to succeed at and in what environments, and let's focus our energy on getting you into those jobs rather than applying in hundreds of sometimes more than a couple hundred rejections. That can take a toll. So we want to avoid that and be a little bit more tailored with how we prioritize the job finding process.
That's great. My dad was he was really, really brilliant, but he ended up jumping from like Lockheed to Piper to Swearingen to Boeing at 74, he got a job at Spar Aerospace. And there he was walking across the tarmac with his walker, telling these guys, where to put the wings and where, but he was a little quirky too, so I'm sure he was on the spectrum. I guarantee he was. But if he would have had the social skills if he would have known how to manage his social skills better, I think he would have, stayed in the same place, maybe in Atlanta.
Totally.
Atlanta. So I think what you're doing is great. So a play would be nice.
And exactly. And yes, you do see a lot of things for sharing about your dad and job hopping and not being able to be in an environment that is perfectly aligned to you and realizing going through the hurdles of it all, I'm sure can definitely take a toll. So
it took a toll on us, to tell you. That's why I moved around a lot, right? From Florida to Atlanta to Seattle, everywhere, Oklahoma. But it was very interesting. And
a good example, there's a lot of us, and for me, I wasn't diagnosed until 24 as an adult. A lot of folks don't have the resources to get a diagnosis. Many who are diagnosed, we may not always want to unmask or share that. So there's a lot of different barriers here, but fundamental to this whole process is that if there's an employer that is neuro-inclusive and they understand what sort of tailored adjustments look like, what sort of an inclusive process looks like, how do we create an environment where we can maximize on someone's unique neuro-exceptional talent. If they get all of that, and the job seeker is not coming through a pathway where they can share and unmask their neurodivergence, then we still are going to have these issues. So core to what Mentra is doing, what we're solving for, is that every job seeker on the platform, we help with the self-advocacy component of really making it's about a 20-minute process to share what does your neurodivergence mean in the workplace, and how can we present that in a standardized way that employers can fully understand upfront, because that upfront understanding is really key.
Exactly. And I wanted to tap on something you said, Connor, because so much of that is interpersonal as well. So yes, there's physical accommodations like, wheelchair accessible ramps and assistive technologies. There's also actually 65% of accommodations are free for the employer to provide, because so many of them are behavioral changes. So, hey, having written, can you provide me with written instructions for a task ahead of time, or meeting notes or recorded meetings, for folks who have different processing speeds, for example, really benefit from that. So there's so many of these like minor changes, in how we perform on a daily basis that can also be so helpful. Or like, hey, I might not, provide you with eye contact. It doesn't mean that I'm not paying attention. There's sort of like a lot of innate things that sometimes assumptions that go overlooked, that when expressed in a workplace can just bring a lot more understanding and empathy, and then greater productivity and long-term, bottom line results as we see in the research. So yeah, it's unfortunate to think that there's so many neurodivergents, and all, our generation, so many generations that have not had their true authentic selves seen and heard. But our goal is to change
more
that.
Fully valued, because Karen, your father, if he was fully understood, and if the employer at the time understood that, hey, he may have been neurodivergent, there's some specific strengths that he can bring that no one else can. And, there's also a couple adjustments, but that's a mutual understanding of the value. And you would see not only more loyalty on his side to want to stay somewhere that values him, but also on the company side, they're getting a lot more out of, every employee who's able to unmask and kind of be in that environment.
Well, the fact that he got a job at the age of 74 and they moved him across the border from the United States to Canada, he was really, really bright. But that other side of himself, that he had to mask with a little bit of too much alcohol. There's that, because he couldn't cope. He couldn't cope with the social behavior, the social interaction of people at times. And so then that soft, gentle Jack came out, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so sad to hear that. I'm so sorry to hear. And I think a lot of, sometimes when neurodivergence goes unseen, like the mental health sort of repercussions of that can be significant and really influence a lot of that support ecosystem and your family, I'm sure. Hopefully, Connor and I always say when we talk with investors, with employers, that there is this whole generation of folks that, are silent quitting, which is where they're in their jobs, but they're not really bringing, they're sort of silent quitting, right? Or there are mental health conditions that are, that are always in the press and in the news about workforces and how sometimes they are being overworked. And so, hopefully the conversation changes with, autism being more recognized across the different variations of spectrums, and neurodivergence being seen as a strength. Like, optimistic that whole like language around it is going to change to be one of, like, as Connor said, strengths and adjustments.
Yes, we're going to change it. We're changing it, man.
If you're thinking about this from a company perspective, right? So let's say someone on the spectrum walks into a role, and there's the environment, the physical environment, you have the bright lights or the loud sounds, and it's just really overwhelming, and that person cannot focus. Doesn't matter how great on paper that person may have been for the role, it's not going to, that role won't work out.
Right.
Could be generator sounds, the food, the smells from the person next to them, all these small things that make a huge difference. Now, if they're neurodivergent, you have to consider that, because it will literally make or break the fit. But let's say that maybe they're just a standard employee. Maybe they may or may not be neurodivergent. They may or may not have a diagnosis. Let's just say regular run-of-the-mill employee. Those things still matter. They're a lot more subtle, but maybe after a couple of years, the person's got a little bit more anxiety because of that type of environment, or maybe they're not quite as productive as they would have been, or maybe it kind of subconsciously eats at them and they leave the role a little bit earlier than they otherwise would have. These are issues that are basically put under the rug. And when we work with solving for the neurodivergent population in the job finding process, we're bringing all those issues to light because they're critical.
Mhm.
But if we can solve for them for the neurodivergent population, which is the most complex use case, we can actually build a better process for everyone. And that is what neuroinclusion is all about. If you can understand that this is important for your entire workforce, and folks on the spectrum will, of course, be large, maybe the most obvious use case, but not the only use case, then that's a really compelling case.
Yes, it is. It solves for everyone. Everybody follows in their footsteps, and it just helps the whole world. It makes it a better place. I think it's great. Woo.
Yeah, and the company wins too, because at the end of the day, this isn't a charity. We won't reach the employment rate. We won't really move the needle unless companies see the benefit. So they have to see that this is working from a retention perspective,
yeah,
from a productivity perspective. And I think we're getting there. We're excited to see that a lot of companies are finally moving beyond just the DEI budget to look at more holistically their workforce and their talent acquisition, and even their existing employees who are neurodivergent, which could be up to 20% of an organization's headcount.
That's really, really good. At first, people are afraid to move because it's something new and different, and they don't want to be the first, but then eventually they'll come along. So it just takes time. It's like kind of the herd mentality, I guess. So,
yeah.
And they'll get it, and then it's going to be a whole bunch of people, and then finally they'll come around. So what's your next step after this playbook?
Yeah. I think one of the things we're doing now, so we're realizing that there's a lot of different services in this space that are really important for employers. So from an employer perspective, you don't just need to hire the talent, you need to have access to the talent pool and be able to, brand your company as neuroinclusive, to be able to go on that journey and actually make those changes. That also takes services. We need training, we need enablement. So with the tool that we're making, we realize that the technology can help a great deal, but it's always going to have a human touch associated as well. So what we're rolling out now is the neuroinclusion marketplace powered by Mentra, where we're bringing together a lot of different service providers to kind of align all of our offerings to a singular goal of getting to company-wide neuroinclusion. So instead of us all being in our separate silos, operating independently, we're bringing everyone together onto a unified model with a singular goal so that a company can get from point A, which could be at the inception phase where they have a targeted program or wherever that is, to where we need to go, which is company-wide, and giving that company no excuse and every reason to stay focused on that goal is our mission. So that's one of the things we have in the works.
And so how many companies are you working with now?
We have 17 currently, and we're talking with 40 more who are excited to hopefully be going live later this year, if not Q1 next year. So we're just seeing the interest growing. So our focus is mainly enterprise companies at the moment, but we do see, of course, in the SMB category, a ton of interest as well. That's just not something we're able to focus on. But there's also a lot of great work that's going on there as well.
Wow. So what else do you want to tell this audience? I know you have lots of other things that you can share with us.
Yeah, I'll share one thing, and then maybe Jhillika, feel free to add. I think one of the really cool things that we're seeing is that every single person can play a role in this societal transformation. So being able to go as a neurodivergent to begin to unmask in the right context is always challenging, but it makes a huge difference. If you're in a company so far, we've seen a lot of employee resource groups forming around neurodivergence, neurodiversity employee resource groups within an organization. And we've seen that by being, both advocates and self-advocates kind of coming together as, as an existing employee base and sharing that, hey, we're here, we're neurodivergent, we're already in your company. That has put a lot of pressure and focus for these companies to then actually prioritize these types of efforts and hiring more folks from this population. So I think one of the key things is just more awareness. Like, let's speak up, let's be open, and that will always move the needle in large numbers. It's of course very challenging, and we want to be respectful of various situations. Not every environment is going to be the most hospitable at the moment, we understand, but generally speaking, that strength in numbers is where we're trying to get to.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree with you, Connor. I think taking a little bit of a different spin on it, I think something that, is important to share with the global audience. I think something that I champion personally with my experiences with my brother Vikram is that it's because of the wide, array of the spectrum. It's easy to sometimes think that our external behaviors are representative of our internal intelligence or cognition. And so my brother, for example, who doesn't give eye contact, seems very disconnected from the world. He, for 27 years of his life, we always assumed, okay, he probably doesn't understand what we're saying. He's very childlike, very parent dependent. So we treated him like a child, and that was kind of, even though he was 7 years older than me, I thought of him as my baby brother. And it wasn't, and, I loved him deeply and dearly. And I have so much respect for him. And now, years later, after working on eye gaze tracking technology, demonstrating cognition that, okay, even if he can't speak, maybe, his eyes are actually going to the letters that he wants to type. And so many non-speaking autistic individuals who were in these studies actually demonstrated that cognition through eye gaze. And so, there's not a lot of scientific research here. That's what I was initially doing at Tech, which is sort of what got us started on Mentra. But there is research coming out at University of Virginia. There's incredible groups that are, advocating now on Capitol Hill for the rights of traditionally nonverbal or non-speaking autistic individuals. So I'm a huge advocate for, assuming competence, cognitive competence in every neurodivergent, and especially for, sharing from my I know my brother would and tells me to share as much as possible about this because he lived through not being understood and not being heard, not even able to express himself. So, the voice that we do have, it's super important to, do our research, speak up for our loved ones, for ourselves. I learned about my neurodivergence just in the last 6 months, learning about, being on the autism spectrum and being an ADHDer. And that's been kind of like a huge reckoning, because I was like, okay, ADHD, I understand that. And then with all the challenges and meltdowns and, variety of autistic traits, I was like, okay, this is tough for me to tell my family because, growing up in an Indian culture, all these other implications. But now kind of learning about it more, it helps me be a better leader, helps me be a better sister, helps me be a better, even child, even though there's a lot of struggles there. But yeah, and same with Connor going through his journey. It was really, really helping us understand ourselves better, and therefore being able to support others more meaningfully. But yes, that would be the last thing I'd love to share.
That was really, really beautiful. So tell me, what's the difference between nonverbal and non-speaking? Is there a difference, or can you explain that?
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question. I think nonverbal autism is kind of what traditionally doctors would diagnose my brother with in 1995 at the time. Now I think because a lot of individuals are able to type on a letterboard, they're sharing that they are verbal, they are able to move and express themselves and point to food, and there is a level of verbal language. It's more so that they can't speak. So it's nothing to do with again, intelligence or such, but also that they're sort of self-advocates have come out and said, hey, I would love to be recognized as a non-speaking individual, because that is where I have challenges. So when I refer to it, there's a lot of the wording and especially in this community, but I try to like keep to the non-speaking, and then traditionally nonverbal is like how folks have known about it for years and years.
Right.
There are folks, many who actually can communicate a lot more eloquently through the letterboard, through typing, and even though they may be able to, formulate a few words, oftentimes the communication is a lot more reliable through written form, and that is not in any way, shape, or form an indication of someone's intelligence. It's just we communicate in different ways, and it's important to recognize and understand.
Yeah, and to that point as well, the cognitive competence is really important. And then I think stigma is around like what does intelligence really mean? What does high functioning, low functioning really mean? Is it high support needs or low support needs? So we've been learning a lot about the sort of social, moving to a social model as opposed to the medical model, in terms of it's not the individual necessarily that needs to change. It's sort of the environment that can be conducive to the individual for the individual to succeed. Like with my brother, if we didn't take the effort and learn to communicate with him in a way that he could control his motor movement, to type letter by letter, and we didn't take the patience and time to do that, we would have never even known. So it's sort of like, changing the environment, changing our behavior to accommodate. And we see the same in the workplace. It's sort of like this key theme throughout of like, society needs to recognize and change over time to recognize that 1 in every 7 humans are neurodivergent. That's a lot of people.
1 in every 7?
Yes.
Oh man, pretty soon it's going to be everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, the umbrella is so wide, right? There's like there's like genetic and also acquired forms of neurodivergence, like PTSD, mental health conditions, as well as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and learning differences. They're also comorbid too. Someone with autism faces anxiety, for example, it's correlation. So not for everyone, but it's this wide umbrella. So we're excited about where the future's headed.
And you both have siblings?
Yeah.
Sibling relationships are very important too. All the interplay between the relationships that siblings have. I know my 2 sons who are neurodiverse, one with autism, one who wishes he had autism, I think, but I don't know. But the relationships are so intertwined and so supportive too, and they're really helpful. The things you learn in those relationships. Anyway, that's a different tangent. That's a whole different conference. Yes.
Yeah, round 2.
Round two. So I can't believe, like, when I first started on this whole quest, my dad was telling me that with his Victor 6000, Karen, one day you're going to be able to talk to somebody on the other side of the world. And the Victor 6000 took up half the size of this room. So
wow.
And so here we are.
I'm telling you, it's diversity of thought that changes the world. And like, we say like Greta Thunberg, like Alan Turing, like people who've revolutionized humanity and it's the inventions and social justice movements, and everything sort of stems from diversity of thought and like neurodivergence, so he predicted
technology helps all of us, especially folks who are in this community, like who really have so many different forms of communication. Now we have the technology to support that. Hopefully one day soon Jhillika's brother will be able to communicate with very limited, basically straight with an interface that gets
brain machine interface
available. Wow.
So these technologies are continuing to make communication more accessible, making the workforce more accessible, and making the ways that we can contribute to society more flexible and nuanced. So let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah, I think we have a game that's called Let's Do It or something like that. Anyway, yeah, that's great. Yeah. So you guys are going to be at the conference, and we're really excited to have you there. So I hope you get all your people to come and see you. And so how can people get in touch with you?
Absolutely.
Great question. Yeah, we are www.mentra.com. We have LinkedIn, which is where we're super active. You can connect with Connor and myself or our large, actually small and mighty neurodiverse team. And then we have a LinkedIn page, Facebook page, Instagram page, Mentra team is what we're called. So reach out, yeah, connect. Let's spread love, spread the community, and yeah, spread resources too.
Yes. And connect. And yes, don't be a silo. We don't want to, yes, connect.
Indeed. And Karen, thank you for organizing this and for pursuing this for years and years and bringing so many together, families, community members, self-advocates. Like you've been building this community for so long, and we're grateful to be part of it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your advocacy. It's an honor to be a part of it. We would love to partner and join forces with anyone else in the community who's looking to push this forward, and we're all stronger together here. So
yes, we are. And we're going to we'll have a community back in so everybody can meet everybody too. So that's part of this plan. So, okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen.
Stay here. Let's see. Yeah.